Hello everyone. It's real early in the morning. My voice may sound a little cracked a little bit. I'm drinking tea right now, but it's still hot. The chapter I'm about to get into is Deuteronomy, which translates to second law. So before getting into Deuteronomy, I had a couple of things that popped in my head. Egypt used to be called Kemet, right? Ancient Egypt was called Kemet. I noticed in the Bible that it gives the names of every place what it was called before its new name, but for some reason the Bible was referring to Egypt as Egypt the whole entire time. It never mentions that Kemet. So that's just interesting. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm not saying that I'm not religious or anything, and I'm not trying to say that it was never called Kemet. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that that's what I noticed. Like, how come they refer to Egypt as Egypt instead of saying Kemet? Okay, so Deuteronomy is the second law. Like, they're just about to get into the promised land, so they're just going over some more rules and regulations and telling people the commandments and like the rules. It says, and I'm reading from Deuteronomy chapter 5, 18 or 16, 16, and it's talking about like the commandments, and it's talking no murder, no adultery, no stealing, no lies about your neighbor, no coveting thy neighbor's wife, and no lusting for his house, field, servant, maid, ox, or donkey either, neither that belongs to your neighbor. It goes over some rules. It talks about the commandments, and the famous, thou shalt not murder, kill, steal, and that stuff. And it also says that this is from Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 5. Okay, and then what they talk about is when God, your God, brings you into the country that you are about to enter and take over, he will clear out the superpowers that were there before you. Okay, God, your God, will turn them over to you and you will conquer them. You must completely destroy them, offering them up as a holy destruction to God. Don't make a treaty with them. Don't let them off in any way. Don't marry them. Don't give your daughters to their sons, and don't take their daughters to your sons. It says before you know it, they've involved you in worshiping their gods, and God will explode in anger, putting a quick end to you. Here's what you are to do. Now this is what they're talking about is when you get to the new land and the people that's already there, destroy all of them. Don't marry them. Don't do anything, And I talked about this before, like when God told the people of Israel not to marry the wives, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna wind up worshiping their gods, and they're gonna before you know it, God is gonna explode in anger, and he's gonna put an end. He's gonna kill all the Israelites if they don't obey him. And here's what he wants them to do when he gets to their the countries that they're taking over. Tear apart their altars stone by stone, chop down their sects and religion crows. Like they have rituals. Some of these cultures back then, they had rituals where it involved sex. So he's saying tear all that down. Set fire to their carved God images. Now, that was in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1 through 5. About that, it's like when it's like tear apart all these statues and everything, that reminds me of the tearing apart in Egypt, where you see all the stuff in Egypt as their nose is blown off, or a lot of things that's in Egypt have been destroyed by people that came into the land. And that's what it reminds me of, actually, like tearing apart like all the stuff. So and it says that they should never return to Egypt again. So even though Egypt stuff is smashed up, and I talked about this in Numbers, it's like just a repeat of when you learn a his story, break that down to his story. When you know, you in school and you learn in a history class that all the, you know, the kings that conquered this nation, da 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 da, and all this other stuff, it just sounds like a repeat. Like somebody read the Bible and they just repeated from the Bible, and they justified destroying all these cities because it's in the Bible. Since in the Bible it says that the Israelites was never to go back to Egypt, and it doesn't say that they ever returned to Egypt, can't say that the statues that you see now of Egypt with the nose blown off the statues and all that other stuff, there's a lot of conspiracies and a lot of reasons to why the nose was blown off. Some people say they blew up the nose because it looked like a nose of a black person, like a person like me or a person of color, and it was distinctive, so they blew it off so people of color wouldn't know where they was from originally. That's the story I heard, that the reason why it was blown off. But I'm not focusing on that part. I'm just focusing on the part that I think that, you know, to say who blew up the nose, I don't know, but I'm just saying that I'm not thinking that it was the people of Israel, because they was told not to ever go back to Egypt, and as far as I'm reading, they haven't been back to Egypt. So I just think it's a copy, like whoever, you know, it's a replica. Whoever followed the Bible and whoever, you know, came after and started doing everything that they do in the Bible, like taking over nations and stuff like that, they blew it off afterwards, probably because of what they read in the Bible, what was told to do. And you know, and that's one thing that I was always afraid to read the Bible, because I'm from New York City, and I'm sure that there's people like this everywhere, but you know, in our train stations and the subways in New York City, you always run into somebody, or somebody's always like taking over the train, like abruptly, like, you know, just preaching the Bible. And some people do it in a peaceful way in New York, some people do it in like a really angry way, and they like, let me tell you, and they just like be loud on the whole train. And that always kind of like the people that did that always kind of like frighten me. Or, you know, you go on the train station in New York City and you just hope, you know, the average New Yorker is like, I hope one of those people don't come on the train. So that's what kind of, I never wanted to read it, because I always thought if I read the Bible that I didn't want to turn into one of those people like preach on the subway. So that's one of the real reasons why I didn't want to ever read the Bible. But reading it had definitely opened my eyes, and I definitely have more questions, so many questions now. And it's just like, you never know. But it's like what I'm learning is like people copied off what they read in the Bible. Like they took it too far. Like I don't think that what happened in the Bible was a story that was supposed to get repeated. Like I don't think people, but some people, where I was going with that train station story is that when some people read the Bible, that they take it to heart and they start to think stuff like, oh, I'm a messenger for God, and they start to think like, well, I have to do something, I have to copy something that was in the Bible, because they get that into the story. Like I think the Bible was the best book ever written, and I thought that even before I read the book, the Bible. So I think some people take it too far, but I'm not to judge, because what I get from the Bible is not what somebody else get, and what somebody else get is not what I'm gonna get. I'm not saying nobody is wrong or right, but that was my I never wanted to become one of those people that just thought that this book is talking to me and I need to do this and stuff like that. Not to judge them, because everybody has their reasons for everything. In Europe, whether they came over for some part in Europe and they decided to take over, I believe that they did it because someone read the Bible and someone believed that it was their mission to play out everything over in the Bible. So from now, we're still going on to this, like religion and stuff is really like hurting people, because I think people interpret it in different ways. I don't want to say in the wrong way, because I'm not, who am I to judge what's wrong or right? But I'm just saying there's a lot of interpretations. People get it and then they let it go to their head, sort of. But I'm really starting to think, to tell you the truth, that this ain't even, you could take the Bible so many ways, but with another theory that I'm starting to think of, this ain't even a story about people. It sounds to me that this is this is a story about the cosmos, to tell you the truth. But everything is 12. It's like even when I didn't get to that part yet, I'm still in the Old Testament, but everybody knows the story of Jesus is very popular, and everybody knows his 12 disciples. So it's just like the 12 disciples or the 12 tribes of Israel. It's almost like the 12 zodiac signs, and in the center is the sun. You know what I mean? The sun, like the son of God, the center is the sun. So I don't know, it's like people take the Bible in their own way, they interpret it in their own way. So Deuteronomy is it's the second law, so it's like Leviticus in a way. It's just repeating it, like before you get to the promised land, this is what else you have to do. So Aaron already died early on. The God of Israel told Aaron and Moses that they was gonna die because they were basically being punished. Even though they like 140 years old, 120 years old, they owed it in age anyway. God told them that even though they did all that for him, the God of Israel said that they won't see the promised land, because there's certain situations, as I mentioned before in my other videos, is that the people of Israel, a lot of them was, they said whining the whole time, like, oh, we was better off in Egypt, why did you bring us out of here, and stuff like that. So they would beg, they would complain or whine, as they say in the Bible, about not having nothing to eat for days, and that the men was getting weak and stuff like that. The people was getting weak, they didn't want to walk no more. So Aaron and Moses, which is like the representatives for them, like, their middle part, when speaking to the God of Israel, told the God of Israel that, hey, the people are getting weak, people are starting to lose faith, like, what can we do? And God told Moses, to take the staff, the stick, hit a rock, and out of that rock water will pour out and everything, stuff like that. So because at some points Aaron and Moses was part of the people that complained, like, listen, we tired, God felt like, the God of Israel felt like they was sort of like questioning his word, and they felt the God of Israel felt like they wasn't loyal the whole way. So because they didn't stay loyal the whole way, he said that they wasn't going to see the promised land. Moses actually took Aaron up to a mountain and killed him, following the God of Israel's orders. Aaron's eldest son became his successor. So God tells Moses to get to the highest mountain that he could find and take a look over the city. So basically it was kind of mean that Moses was that loyal, and because he was at some points he was whining with the rest of the camp, with the rest of the congregation, that he's not able to see the promised land because he had some moments of weakness where he was starving basically, or he just didn't think he could do it alone sometimes, so he needed help, which is understandable when you trying to command over 600,000 people. So God saw that was unloyal, so he actually, I think this is kind of mean, he told him to get to the highest mountain, and he could only look at the city, that the land that was promised to him. He would never touch it, he would never walk on the land. So that was kind of messed up, because I feel like even though Moses and Aaron had their weak moments, they were still loyal to the core. God told Aaron and Moses, take the staff, hit the rock, and out of the rock I'll pour out water and the people would drink. So he did that, and that's how the people got water. So there was other times where they was through the wilderness and through the wilderness, and I'm sorry, my voice is cracked. There was other times when it was through the wilderness and they was complaining that they was hungry, and God gave them manna, I think it's called manna, to eat, which is something that is said to be created for the heavens. Like, they didn't have manna until they was in the wilderness. It's something that they created along the way. So they wanted fish and they wanted meat, so another situation. God laid out meat for them to eat for like 40 days. Every day they had food, and the God of Israel told them not to take too much, not to have any leftovers. Don't save any leftovers for another day. Don't be greedy. Basically, take as much as you need for the day to survive, to to build you up so you can keep on walking. And I think the reason why the God of Israel told them to take as much as you need, because he didn't want them to be too greedy. Because I think if they was too greedy and they took more, like so they could have for a couple of days, it would mean that they wasn't loyal. And I think that's how he would take it. So by telling them to only take what you need, it's I guess it was saying to the God of Israel that these people believe in you, and they believe that if they take what they need today, that you would bless them tomorrow. So I think that's the reason why he told them that. People eat. All creatures eat. Animals eat. People eat. Why are they walking through the desert without any water and food if all you have to do is take a staff and hit a rock and water? I mean, you can make food come out of anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be any food in sight for the God of Israel to give them food. So what was the point of having them starving and hungry and waiting until they couldn't walk no more to come whine to you? It's like basically you're not feeding the people. The God of Israel is not feeding the people as they're walking, right? And when they say that they can't do it anymore because they're hungry or they're thirsty, they're being punished for asking for food. But if they could have had food every day, why not give them food every day? And again, it sounds mean, but again, I think it goes back to the God of Israel wanting them to be loyal to him. Can't just not handing them stuff. Like if you supply them food every day, of course they're gonna follow you, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they respect you or they love you or they honor your word. It's just like you're just taking care of them. So I'm thinking that the suffering was because of the devotion that he wanted to see in them. The 40 years in the wilderness was all that. The Passover, all the celebrations that is also you could keep on remembering and keep on staying devoted. But the thing is, all of that isn't working. Every time a new generation comes along, people forget because the parents and the grandparents aren't teaching the new children, the children that are being born, the history, the tradition. Moses dies before the promised land. So when Moses dies, his successor, which is Joshua, is someone that since Joshua was young, he was Moses took him under his wing since he was young, and Joshua becomes the new leader after Moses died. But yeah, that's what I get from Deuteronomy. It's the second law, and this law, I would say that the law from the laws that set up in this book is different from Leviticus, because Leviticus sounds like the laws of the government today. These second laws sound more religious, more of what I would think that the laws of the Bible would have. These laws are more of the Bible than of government. It's so early in the morning. Well, chapter 32, Deuteronomies, is like they start singing. This is like the first, like I'm hearing songs. They starting to learn songs to remember God, and all this is just to remember the God of Israel. All the singing and stuff, like I wouldn't say really to praise him. It's just remembering the journey and remembering, like they said 500 million times. It's like I'm the God that took you, delivered you from Egypt. I'm the God that took you out of Egypt. So yeah, so this is what I got from Deuteronomies. I'll see y'all in the next chapter I'm gonna be talking about is Joshua.